Today I'm speaking with Candice Kay, bespoke textile designer and go-to creator that brands like Nike, Microsoft, Maman Cafe, and Bacardi call on when they need an unforgettable interior.
It was a lot of mental work and personal growth that I had to go through and continue to go through as a woman, as a person, as a being, human being, that has supported the growth of my business.
In a world where famous faces are often photographed in front of her work, this episode delves deeper into balancing artistic integrity with high-profile brand expectations, the art of networking and tapping into creative abundance, and prioritizing self-care rituals and inner growth for success. Let's dive in. Candice, it's great to have you. We have so much to talk about. I am very curious to kind of get all of your insights on, your design meets entrepreneurship and being able to have the foresight to see something that wasn't there. There was a prime need in the market. So we have a lot to talk about today. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Let's go to the backstory and let's just talk a little bit on the inception. How did you really recognize there was a need for your work as it relates to what you've gone and built today?
It started because I would walk into restaurants when I was living in New York, and I was in textile. I worked at Holland & Sherry at the time, and every single wallpaper in a restaurant, I was like, And then at work, I would see the beautiful handmade rugs for interiors, and that would be in residential spaces. And I'm like, why is this not happening here? And at the time, there wasn't a lot of options for commercial grade prints. They weren't cute. And it started as, what if I did a one of a kind print and then just repeated it? So the concept of one of a kind for each restaurant wasn't really a thing then when I first started.
Were people receptive right away, or were you hit by a lot of no's?
Well, New York was a hard place to start. And one of the things that I learned really early on when I would talk about what I was doing, and I was young, I was 23, 24, and I was like, I'm going to transform textile and this is what I'm going to do. And I was at the Soho House with a friend, and there was this guy, and he just looked at me and he was like, in this town, you can't tell people what you're going to do unless you have something to show for it. And I'll never, ever forget that conversation. From there, I would go home and make my own wallpaper. I started doing my own prints, painting and doing and creating. And I would make up launches and launch a collection that nobody bought, all in the while of working full time. So by the time when the clients start coming, I had practice, but then not even realizing that I was practicing.
Right. What was the process of gathering clients?
My first client was a cafe called Maman in New York. And me and Elisa would sit and I would tell her what I wanted to do in the industry. And I think that inspired her to be like, wait a second, there's something here. And then I didn't know that she was going to start a cafe. So 6 months later, she was like, Candice, what you've been talking about and what you've been sharing with me, let's do 4 custom prints. We'll put them on the cups. We'll make them the brand. And let's just see if this works. And it blew up. And it was just one of the coolest moments of my career, of watching people in Soho with a Mama cup. You be in a subway and you be like, that's my print. And because it was so recognizable, the people that really wanted it organically just came to me. That was the beginning. It was very word of mouth.
That uniqueness in the restaurant space and, Instagram and having a lot more sort of social media around your brand experience. What year was this, by the way?
So this was 2014. So it was the rise, the mecca of social media. And that was also part of it. I think regardless of what I was building, I would also watch how everyone interacted with the prints and what they were doing. And they were taking pictures. And that's when New York Fashion Week had all the influencers come in and everyone rolled through Mama. And so it was this beautiful union of how socially people were operating with social media, how people were interacting with the prints, how people were finally taking pictures and then were tagging where they were going. So Not only am I doing one of a kind prints for restaurants, but this is going to be the mark when people take pictures. You're going to know exactly where they are. You're going to know what location they're in.
I think what you're really talking about is a blend of strategic thinking meets
Mhm,
creativity. When you think about sort of the next moves in building against high profile brands,
mhm.
collaboration, bigger interiors, was that the next chapter in the journey for you?
I left New York. It
Hmm.
was so expensive and the city was so fast paced that maybe also part of me wanted out of that for a bit. It was a lot of years of like hustle, and I wanted to really create and have the time to do so. But I had to leave my full time job, my apartment, my visa, everything to start a business in Toronto. And I live with my mom. I couldn't worry about the money because I wanted to make sure that the clients that I were finding were perfect for what I was building and not just take on clients because I needed to make rent.
Those tips are really important. There is a big rise right now in sort of the side hustle and people really wanting to get into entrepreneurship on the side and
Mm.
dabble into it. But I think what you're really saying is like giving yourself that time, giving yourself that financial security allowed for you to curate the right clients at the right time and go slower. As you've been working with these, major brands, who all have their own opinions of what their spaces should look like, what their brand experience should be. How do you go about sort of managing expectations?
Everyone has an opinion, everyone has a style, and there had to be this like, yes, I'm an artist and I love what I do and I take so much pride in what I do, but it wasn't about me. This is not about my art. This is about the restaurant and my client and what they want. And if they came back to me with corrections, it's like you cannot take it personal. There have been moments where we put up wallpaper and they didn't like it and we had to take it down and start again.
Wow. At the very end of the project, right?
Yeah. And it's just I've developed this endurance of like, it's okay, I always deliver, we're going to figure this out together. And my clients have incredible taste. Like, people that operate at that type of capacity know exactly what they want when you show them, and they're already doing incredible things. Their taste is already there. And oftentimes I've been wrong where I thought it was something, and then I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, no, you're right. That I was wrong. That's the print that we should do." And so we've developed this beautiful collaborative relationship where we trust each other.
Hmm. What you're talking about is really important as it relates to giving and receiving feedback and how foundational trust is, like trusting yourself, trusting the person you're working with.
Hmm.
Oftentimes, when there isn't trust, I think that's where we get defensive. Also, I think that's just beautiful insight that you shared. I'm imagining that people are kind of listening to this story thinking, well, how did you get these clients? Is there any early lessons in that for anyone who's seeking to build a network of high profile clients?
That wasn't my intention at the beginning of my career. I had no money, so I was like, I want to do commercial. That makes sense. I want to change. I see a hole in the market. Okay, that makes sense. We're going to use social media, but also I get to use these photos as my marketing tools. So, because that was the true intention at the beginning, where I was like, I want to transform commercial, because it was so niche that organically brought me people through word of mouth that wanted the same thing and truly saw the value in what I was building. So these high profile clients they not only have one restaurant, they have multiple. And they also understand the value of social media, and they also understand the value of marketing. And I truly so invested in their brands.
And when you think about sort of leveraging that network, how do you think about kind of playing the short game versus the long game as it relates to relationship building within your network?
Just say it was only about the money. If that's what I'm after, people can feel that.
Hmm.
Like there's so many things that I've done, just like, hey Candice, we need this done tomorrow. Any chance you can get that done? Yeah, no problem, whatever you need. Hey Candice, we need this shipped before payment. If it's a smaller wall, just say no problem. It was years and years and years of understanding this is family and we're gonna help each other. And if you need anything, no matter what, I got your back. If you have a client base that you want to keep, you need to show that client that no matter what, you're gonna be there. And my clients know they're getting that level of detail from me.
Candice, share with me some of the brand collections that you've done.
I've collab and still am with CB2. We did a full rug line, and then we did drapery and pillows, and we did a full tableware line together. I worked with Nike. I did a really cool installation with Bacardi, and then I'm working with a lot of interior designers now to create collections that I can also sell by the panel. So if you don't want bespoke, or maybe you don't really need it, you can go on my website and you can at least feel like you're getting that level of attention through the panels and stuff that I sell online. Yeah, the collaborations are fun.
What did the collaboration bring to you from a personal growth perspective?
Every single surface is a different application and different technique, and a different skill set. And every single collaboration that I took on was a new challenge. So when I did plates, I was designing that to a very small scale, and then doing layout and what that would look like on a table is a very different process as doing wallpaper for large interior spaces. That was sold for residential. Like, is anyone going to buy this? Because the color choices that you use in the commercial spaces are different. So the whole process is a different mindset, skill set, clientele. And that's just been so fun to explore because it keeps me on my toes and challenged and just constantly learning.
Do you have any sort of like daily tips? Like, do you reflect every night? Like, how do you kind of keep on top of the iteration and self learning when you're taking on so many new things?
It's just making sure that, yeah, your mind's right, your ego's in check. Are you really doing what you're doing because you love it? Or are you doing it because you like the praise of it? And I have to check myself all the time. Is this what I want? Does this client make sense?
The spaces that, at least what I'm seeing on social media, like those spaces, celebrities photograph themselves in front of those spaces. Your work is quite prominent out there in the world. So I was wondering how you do kind of make sure you stay grounded in, what you are doing versus getting caught up in what you said, I have to check my ego.
Yeah, because it's not about me. This is about them. This is about like setting a client up properly so that when a celebrity does walk through their door, that picture is perfect. I set that up for their success, and I just benefit for the fact that like J-Lo's at my restaurants that I've worked on, that's cool. It's still cool. I obviously like, I saw Cher recently at a Vegas opening and I was like, this is crazy. I love this. But yeah, it's the perks of it, if that makes sense.
Where do you get your inspiration for these ideas?
A lot of silence. And I think that's why I love LA, because it allows me to get into nature and just like, just zone out. Travel is so important to me. Travel is the idea of you being on a plane and landing somewhere that I've never been before and just kind of shocking the system and being completely present allows me to turn off. And it's really important for me to see different things all the time. Like, I'll find inspiration from a little flyer somewhere or a conversation with someone that I just met in some restaurant, and they'll mention something. I'm like, oh, I never thought about it that way. Understanding that there's no lack of creativity. And it took me a long time to learn that. And I think that's a big thing for creatives. People would tell me, like, how are you going to do bespoke? It's never going to work. I got so many no's at the beginning because no one understood it. How are you going to create different designs for every single client over and over and over again? How are you going to make money? This is not profitable. It's not scalable. It was their misunderstanding of how abundant we are as people naturally. And when you tap into your creative abundance, there's no lack. It doesn't make it's impossible. So and it's trusting yourself that the ideas will always come. And yes, there's so many moments where nothing's coming and I'm like, I suck. Like this is like I should just quit, you know? But it always happens. You always get the idea. And it's just I trust myself in that space so fully. I have to.
Is there something you do on a daily, like everyone's always, asking about what's your morning routine? Like what are the daily practices? Anything that you kind of have to kind of must do for yourself in order to make sure that your creativity is abundant and flowing?
I think the biggest thing is making sure that my mind is at peace at least one part of the day. So in the morning, I go for walks. I have my coffee mug, and I just go for a walk in the neighborhood. Just put my earphones on and by myself. Alone time is so important. I wouldn't say I have routines because it's impossible with my work,
Mm-hmm.
but I do have rituals. So it's alone time, go for walks, go on a hike, I work out. I need to be active. And I also go to the movies alone often,
Mm-hmm.
like the theater. And then I go for dinners alone.
When you look back at who you were 6 or 7 years ago
Oof.
to today, what are some of the biggest areas that you have seen your own personal growth?
The biggest thing in business was confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Money is scary as an entrepreneur too. You don't know when it's going to come and where it's going to be. And it's just learning how to calm those nerves. It's going to be okay. But you have to work your ass off. You got to be so patient, but patient doesn't mean do nothing. Patient means do everything that you possibly can and be patient all at one time. That was a big lesson for me. And whenever I get caught up in my head, it's remembering that.
Mm-hmm.
Just calm, you're gonna be okay. I have confidence now in what I'm building, so that helps obviously a lot. When I started, I was just an overthinker and I would go in these spirals. And that's definitely stopped. And then there's a personal side as an entrepreneur. You're alone a lot. That's a big reality. You're alone by yourself. No one gets it. No one's helping you. No one's going to save you, and there's a lot of mental work and personal growth that I had to go through and continue to go through as a woman, as a person, as a human
Mm-hmm.
being that has supported the growth of my business. So the more mature that I've become and emotionally mature, emotionally aware, um, that supported the business in such a way that has allowed me to not only communicate better with people, have more empathy, or even just be more intuitive and be able to feel what my clients' needs are, and then also make sure that I take care of myself.
Was there anything that came up in those early days that just really put it front and center for you? You're like, oh, this is the lesson.
The biggest lesson that I learned during those beginning days was ego, and understanding that there's a gap between what you are now and who you are now and how you create and what will happen eventually. But there's an in between space in the creation process that you're going to really have to learn how to sit in and not allow the ego to get ahead of you. So it's when I get a project, I'll be better. When I move back to New York, I'll be happier. When I live here, I'll be happier. Like that's all your ego making up these stories about what's going to make your right now present moment better. So I had to learn gratitude, and I had to become so thankful for like the pencil that I drew with, because it just felt so caved in and I felt so alone and isolated. And also, too, it was paired with, is this even going to work? Like, what am I even doing? Like, who's going to buy this? Is this like, yes, I had mama and I had Planta behind me, but you need some more clients to make some money.
And how is it translated in the business?
I just was able to be so focused in my intention and when I was building it and my mission that I didn't let all the other noise get to me. And it still does, like with people and friends, and you're dating, and that's gonna affect you.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to learn how to not listen to the noise, because it will take up your mind space when I need that space to be creative.
I just think these are invaluable lessons. And I think in today's world right now, obviously with digital and social media being ever prominent, but I also think like there's a lot of young people who are aspiring to be entrepreneurs today. Like this is a big trend and a big shift. So this has just been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for joining us here today. And I think so many people are going to really learn and benefit from your journey and your story. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn, where we transform the wisdom from our podcast into practical tips, tools, and takeaways for your leadership journey. Find us at grit.grace.podcast. See you next week.